Ladies and gentlemen, you know it's bad when a coroner is trying to run like hell away from the morgue. Well, actually, after I read the article, this man did not quit. He actually retired. And, you can tell just from what he was saying how coroners and medical examiner offices are exhausted all around the country dealing with the uh, the overflow of the drug deaths, because that's really taking up all of their time. Believe it or not, things like homicides and other things are just not, so they're really investing all of their time on doing autopsies on these junkies. And this is everywhere. As overdose deaths pile up, medical examiners quit the morgue. And thank you, Fanny G, for sending this story. Okay, in the state morgue here, in the industrial maze of a hospital basement, Dr. Henry A. Andrew was slicing through the lung of a 36-year-old woman when white foam seeped out onto the autopsy table. Foam in the lungs is a sign of acute asphyxiation caused by an opioid. So is swollen brain. So she had a swollen brain and she had foam coming out of her lungs. Woo, man, which she also had. But Dr. Andrew, the chief medical examiner of New Hampshire, would not be certain of the cause of death until he could rule out other causes like brain aneurysm or foul play, and until after the woman's blood tests come back. With the nation snared in what the government says is the worst drug plague in its history, routine autopsies like this one, which take more than 2 hours of overtaxing medical examiners everywhere. It's almost as if the Visigoths are at the gates, and the gates are starting to crumble, Dr. Andrew said. I'm not an alarmist by nature, but this is not overhyped. It has completely overwhelmed us. Oh, I believe you, Dr. Andrew. Damn. Woman who died of drug overdose. Prepare for autopsy. As Dr. Andrew, an energetic man of 60, who with his close crop gray beard resembles actor Richard Dreyfuss, or whatever, has watched the drug toll amount, he is no longer content simply to catalog it. He wants to try in his own small way to stop it. After laboring here as the chief forensic pathologist for 2 decades, exploring the mysteries of the death, he retired last month to explore the mysteries of the soul. In a sharp career turn, he is entering a seminary program. Okay, so he's getting ready to become a man of the cloth, whatever. Ultimate plans to minister to young people to stay away from drugs. After seeing thousands of sudden, unexpected, or violent deaths, Dr. Andrew, I have found it impossible not to ponder the spiritual dimension of these events for both the deceased and especially those left behind. With 64,000 overdose deaths last year nationwide, a staggering 22% jump over the previous year, it is little wonder that overdoses, the leading cause of deaths among Americans under 50. You hear that? It's not black on black crime. It's not Chicago. It's drug deaths that leads in America. Are reducing life expectancy, which I did a video on that. Okay, so now because of the drug death, the life expectancy is also becoming shorter. And this is from the group that's being mostly impacted by the drug deaths. It's not everybody. They are also straining the staff and resources of morgues and causing major backlogs. How selfish. This is especially true in New Hampshire, which has more deaths per capita from synthetic opioids like fentanyl than any other state. Last year, the overdose death toll here reached nearly 500, almost 10 times the number in 2000. Almost dirty ass feet. Okay. Some medical examiners, especially in hard hit Ohio, have had to store their corpses in cold storage trailers in their parking lots. And we've heard about that with Ohio. In Manatee County, Florida, Dr. Russell Vega, the chief medical examiner, said that when he reaches overflow conditions, he relies on a private body transport service to store the bodies elsewhere until his office can catch up. In Milwaukee, Dr. Brian L. Peterson, the chief medical examiner, said that apart from the tsunami of bodies, damn, his autopsy volume is up 12% from last year. The national drug crisis has led to staff burnout. Wow. Drained budgets and threats to the accreditation of many offices because they have to perform more autopsies than industry standards allow. Wow. Well, they're going to have to start making changes to the standard so they don't lose their accreditation. At the same time, severe staff shortages unrelated to the drug crisis are crippling the profession, said Dr. Peterson, who is president of the National Association of Medical Examiners, which oversees accreditation. Few people go into forensic pathologists in the first place, he said, largely because of the low salaries. And as more forensic pathologists retire, fewer are replenishing the supply. So there's not a lot of people going into the profession of examining dead bodies. The result, Dr. Peterson said, is a national crisis that has already cost at least 4 offices their accreditation, which can undermine public confidence and lead to court challenges over a medical examiner's findings. For Dr. Andrew in New Hampshire, where a backlog of autopsies has put the state at risk of losing accreditation, that prospect is particularly distressing. He spent the first 8 of his 20 years here professionalizing the office and earning its accreditation. Despite the caseload, the office has one of the most timely and transparent surveillance and reporting systems in the country. A medical examiner's office is considered deficient if an individual pathologist must perform more than 250 autopsies per year. Well, I don't see how they can't exceed that amount. If you know you got a major drug plague in your country, of course they're going to exceed 250 autopsies. It's going to be done very easily. And they're talking about they got to autopsy every single drug death because they're trying to track down the dealer that sold the drugs to that individual. Last year, Dr. Andrew and Dr. Jamie V. Duvall, the deputy chief medical examiner, performed 250 each. Wow. If this year's number exceed last year's, New Hampshire could be in trouble. Pathologists cannot refuse to do autopsies just because they might risk losing accreditation, nor would Dr. Andrew rush through them. He said, even if all signs point to a drug overdose, since the overdose toll began to climb about 6 years ago, Dr. Andrew has pleaded for more pathologists. The legislature finally authorized 1 in July, but until then, his office had only 2. the same number as when he started in 1997. Upstairs from the morgue is Concord Hospital. In his clustered office, Dr. Andrew pointed to a stack by his microscope and more than 80 folders containing glass slides of tissue samples taken during autopsy. For each folder represented an open case. Not all are drug cases, he said, but all are swept up in the backlog. He pulled out a log book going back to 1997 when his handwritten entries began charting the earliest stages of what would become the drug plague. Wow. I guess this is what he's talking about. This is his backlog. That is crazy. Oh, man. Woo, I wouldn't trade places with these folks. Mm-mm. There's a blunt impact, drowning, one drug overdose, he said, scanning an early page. A few years on, he found 7 overdoses on a single page. A more recent page, 12 overdoses. More were caused by fentanyl, which is now has so thoroughly replaced heroin as the biggest killer on the streets here in the state. No longer talks of a heroin plague, but a fentanyl one. The logbook also revealed that drug users in their 20s and 30s are increasingly dying of heart valve infections. You know what? I was reading the heart doctors are now overwhelmed with all of these people in their 20s and 30s because they have to get heart valve replacement at that age because of the drug abuse. That's crazy. The endocarditis, I guess that's the infection of heart valve. The ages are younger for such infection, and usually you don't see those type of things happening until a person like it's around 60. Wow. The ages are young for such infections. In these cases, they result from dirty needles. We have seen more endocarditis in the last 2 years than we have in the previous 15 combined, Dr. Andrews said. The arrival in May in New Hampshire of carfentanil, the elephant tranquilizer that is 10 times as potent as morphine, has also ratcheted up pressure on his office. So far this year, New Hampshire has had 4 suspected carfentanil deaths, and 11 of them confirmed, more than most states. He looks like, damn, I'm so happy to be out from that morgue and all them dead bodies. It makes me feel like my hair is on fire, and I don't even have hair, Dr. Andrews said, of the threat of increasingly potent drugs. We're already so far behind the 8 ball here. If we have an influx of carfentanil in this state, heaven help us. Back in the morgue, Dr. Andrews said he had learned to cope in this job and its full immersion in death and compartmentalizing what he sees and locking it away. Every day, he said, a pathologist faces the fleeting nature of mortality. The people on his examining table could have lived a lot longer, but for not a few millimeters of cholesterol in the wrong blood vessel. A second, inattention by a driver of a car, or a lethal potency of a drug obtained on the streets. And after a while, he said, one is bound to ask, what's all this about? His plans to become an ordained deacon in the United Methodist Church with two goals: to serve as chaplain for the Boy Scouts of America, and to join the Appalachian Trail. Oh, okay. I'm not really interested in his church. I'm just going to skip over that part. Dr. Andrew said he developed an appreciation for the essence of life by seeing its fragility. Most of the nearly 5,800 people he has examined on his stainless steel autopsy table, he said, woke the day they died, obliviously to the fact that it would be their last one on earth. Examining cadavers, he said, as he removed the 3 pairs of gloves. Wow. That is unbelievable. So when you examine a drugged up body, you need at least 3 pairs of gloves. 2 made of latex and 1 of Kevlar. One protect him during autopsy from bloodborne diseases in profound work, but he says it has only affirmed for him the view of the philosopher Thomas Hobbes. He called the human condition nasty, brutish, and short. For him, there is comfort in the concept of an afterlife. Okay. I'm very, very hopeful for what comes after this, because this, he said, gesturing towards the woman he had just autopsied, is pretty awful. I guess it is. I tell you what, I couldn't do that job. I don't care what, I couldn't do it. I would be too scared to put my hands on those junkies, even if I have gloves on. I wouldn't care. I don't want to touch no junkies. Okay. I don't know what they took. I don't want to know. I just don't want them near me, period. Please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. And if you can donate to my channel, please do. Peace, family.